The Arena Legacy Award honors a Primer member who's made an exemplary contribution to the mission and goals of Primer by significantly promoting the ethical conduct of research through mentoring, teaching, and leadership. From 1986 to 2005, ARENA, which stands for the Applied Research Ethics National Association, was the membership division of Primer. Perhaps one of its most important contributions was fostering the professional advancement of those individuals who work in the field of human subjects protections. Without question, Primer, ARENA, and the Certified IRB Professional Program have altered the landscape of human research protections by educating, unifying, and professionalizing those who previously, as individuals, created, implemented, and managed our IRBs. Susan Delano, the 2012 recipient of the Arena Legacy Award, in no small measure has been central in promoting the development and professional maturation of our field. Susan was among those who 13 years ago envisioned the CIP program, and as a founding member and then as chair of the Council for Certification, Susan played a pivotal role in the creation and growth of the CIP program. As noted in the award nomination submitted by a Primer member, in the 6 years that she chaired the CIP Council, the CIP credential evolved into the gold standard for the certification of IRB professionals. It is now a sought-after credential for those in human subjects community, and the number of IRB professionals exceeds 2,100 individuals. Susan has been the steady guiding influence that has allowed the CIP credential to achieve its current level of success. It's our good fortune that some years back, Susan, a native of Australia, met an American scientist on a scuba diving trip. She had completed her undergraduate and master's level work at the Australian National University, where she studied psychology, sociology, and research methodology. She'd begun work in Australia as a special projects officer implementing new laws for the Attorney General's office. So in 1981, when Susan joined this American scientist who was then working at Stony Brook in the State University of New York, it became our second stroke of good luck that Stony Brook was looking for someone to implement a new set of federal guidelines, regulations for human subjects protections. Soon after, Susan had her second job in the United States, and she and John moved to Albany, where Susan began her approximately 30-year tenure at the Research Foundation for Mental Hygiene, overseeing the IRBs for New York's Office of Mental Health. It's an understatement to say that Susan Delano has been a strong and steady hand in creating the statewide IRB program for the Office of Mental Health and the Office of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disabilities. In OMH, Susan set and maintained exacting standards for the conduct of science. She is a champion of research and a forceful defender of subject rights at the same time. Susan has single-handedly, let me depart from script a minute here and say that I think that Susan would probably be uncomfortable with the notion that she single-handedly did what she did. I think if we can say anything about Susan is that Susan gives an enormous amount to those who she works with and supervises and mentors and expects virtually nothing except hard work in return. So Susan doesn't like the idea if I say Susan single-handedly changed the face of research ethics in the New York State Office of Mental Health, but she certainly has. I would certainly say on a personal note that in my 13 or so years working closely with Susan since I was first IRB chair, no one had a greater influence on my intellectual and professional development in human research protections than Susan. But Susan's not flashy, she's not forceful in her demands on people. She's steady and intelligent and cautious and careful and always available. She, like many good research administrators and leaders, doesn't look for fame or fortune, certainly not the fortune. Susan is effective at taking pleasure in the products of her hard work and in the successes of those who she supports. And Susan has been probably the key supporter of research in the Office of Mental Health in her 30-year history there. Without her, we wouldn't see nearly the kind of success that we do. So it's my personal great pleasure to recognize Susan and to be able to offer her this 2012 Arena Legacy Award. Can you hold this one too? I understand that these came from friends and family in Australia.
Oh, wow. Oh.
Okay.
Okay. Put this down
Yes.
so I don't drop it. David, thank you so much. To respond to wonderful comments like that is so difficult, and I so appreciate it. Thank you so much. When Joan called to tell me that I was being given the Arena Legacy Award, my first reaction was shock, and I think I'm still a little bit in shock. I've had some time to sort of process that and to think more about how very lucky I have been in my career. Shortly after I stumbled into my IRB position at Stony Brook in 1981, I found PRIM&amp, and in March of that year, I attended their conference, The New Federal Regulations, What They Do and Do Not Regulate. I was one of those people that Joan Racklin so wonderfully described as an early collection of mostly unwitting individuals who answered job descriptions that plunged them down the rabbit hole quickly and deeply. That conference and the many that followed were critical to my professional development, in large part by facilitating my relationships with so many others in the field. When Arena was established in 1986, it provided a forum and a network of support to the growing number of us who were developing into the role of IRB professionals. That this award is the Arena Legacy Award is so meaningful to me because of those people, the support, and the professional development that Arena provided. As David mentioned, Arena was also the birthplace of the IRB Professional Certification Program. In 1999, I received an email from Gary Chadwick, Susan Kornetsky, and Mary Ann Elliott, and it had a subject line, "Offer you can't refuse." I'm so glad I didn't. That email was an invitation to attend a 2-day planning meeting to continue their work in establishing the CIP program. The increasing demands being placed on IRBs and the growing professionalism of their staff had highlighted the need for a mechanism to recognize and further develop the role of IRB professionals. The 1999 meeting developed the framework for the certification program, establishing its body of knowledge and establishing the Council for Certification of IRB Professionals. We worried in those early days about whether the certification would gain acceptance. Thanks in very large part to those brave souls who stepped up and took those first examinations and demonstrated their support, the credential has become established as the gold standard, and we really do thank those early people. You were so critical. In those early days, we didn't fully understand the impact that the credential was going to have, but since then, through conversations with CIPs and with surveys, we've come to understand how much the certification program has benefited people through fostering education, networking, and professional recognition. For some, it has even translated into financial rewards. I've been so fortunate to be part of this process. There are so many people that I would like to thank and recognize, and I'm going to apologize to all those I don't have time to name today, because they kept me to 5 minutes here. I would like to thank my family, my parents in Australia and the rest of my family there for their support. To my husband of 32 years, John, for his love and support. And I really appreciate Joan and her staff for arranging logins so that they can view this presentation today. I want to thank 3 people in particular who shaped my professional career, in addition to David, who's been such a wonderful influence. I'd like to thank Charlie McCarthy. Charlie was the head of OPRR and actively created and supported a thoughtful dialogue and a collaboration in figuring out how to implement the human subject regulations. I also had the privilege of working with Charlie when he was a member of a Department of Health task force on protected classes, and I participated as a staff member. That was a privilege and an honor. I also want to thank John Oldham and Heinz Lehmann, 2 psychiatrists and leaders that I had the extreme good fortune to work with closely in the Office of Mental Health. I've learned so much from these 3 and benefited from their wisdom, their leadership, and their deep commitment to the protection of human subjects. I'd like to thank David Strauss, Elizabeth Small, our IRB chairs, Dr. Loida, Dr. Jenkins, Dr. Nunes, Dr. Richter, the IRB members and the staff from our institutes at Psychiatric Institute, Nathan Klein Institute, and the Institute for Basic Research, who I so enjoy working with and learning from. Working through real-life, real-time issues and concerns with these knowledgeable, thoughtful, and caring individuals is a privilege. I'd like to thank my colleagues at the Research Foundation for Mental Hygiene, particularly Bob Burke, the Managing Director, who's been so supportive of my work with the Council and the CIP program, and Lynn Wechsler, who works with me to support our IRBs. I'm so happy to have her as part of my team. To the many in the leadership positions within the research institutes and central office who have so strongly supported the protection of human subjects. I don't have time to name them all, but I would like to recognize Robin Goldman and Jay Zucker for providing wise legal counsel, strong moral compasses, and support. And to the directors of the institutes, my hands are shaking here, for their commitment to our human subject program. I'd like to particularly thank the people who have participated as members of the Council for Certification of IRB Professionals over the years, particularly Gary Chadwick, Susan Kornetsky, and Marianne Elliott, who are the nucleus of the creation of the program and invited me in. Gary's leadership of the program, guiding it during its early years, was critical to the success of the program, and I owe so much to him. Could the council members please stand and be recognized for all the work you've done? Thank you. I'd also like to thank Greg Lim, who worked with me as vice chair and has so capably taken over as chair of the council to provide leadership as the program continues to grow and develop in response to the needs of the community of IRB professionals. I'd also like to thank all CIPs. You have made the CIP credential the respected credential that it is today. Would you all stand and be recognized? I really want to offer congratulations to all of you. So in parting, I'd just like to say again to Primer, the Primer staff, and the Arena Legacy, I'm so very grateful for this award and for the wonderful things that David has said and the privilege of working with him. Thank you to all of you.